What's up, everybody? I'm Guy. This is my Comic Book Talk YouTube channel, and today I wanted to talk about comic book collecting, but specifically I wanted to talk about getting back into comic book collecting if you've been out of it for a long time like I've been, or maybe if you're thinking about getting into comic book collecting for the first time and you're not sure where to start. So yeah, let's jump into that. Now, this is my brand new YouTube channel. I have another YouTube channel where I talk about wristwatches. If you're familiar with me or that channel, that was just Bluefish Watch Reviews. I decided a couple of months ago to get back into comic book collecting after a probably 10 to 15 year hiatus in the hobby. And, you know, since I'm already doing videos anyway, I figured why not do some videos about comic book collecting. Now, this channel has, at the time of this filming, like literally 10 subscribers. So I need you guys to help me out. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave me a comment down below to let the YouTube algorithm know that you enjoy my videos and that you think that more people should see them. Now, in order to encourage you to hit that subscribe button, what I'm going to do is a giveaway. Every month, I want to give away something new. Since I'm a very small channel, it's going to be a very small giveaway, but I am giving away this comic book right here. This is Amazing Spider-Man number 328, one of my all-time favorite Spider-Man covers by one of my all-time favorite Spider-Man artists, Todd McFarlane. We have the Amazing Spider-Man, cosmic powered, giving the Gray Hulk the uppercut. It is a phenomenal book. It's a phenomenal cover. It's phenomenal artwork with a phenomenal artist and a phenomenal character. It's a lot of phenoms, I know. Somebody from the subscriber list is going to get this comic book for free at the end of the month. Since I'm starting this YouTube channel in the middle of August, we're going to stretch this out. At the end of September, I'll give this one away. And then at the end of October, something new, November, December, so on and so forth. All you have to do is be subscribed, have the notifications turned on so that when I do the announcement of the giveaway at the end of September, you don't miss it. You have to see that video in order to be eligible to get this because you're going to have to leave a comment in that video. So yeah, again, small giveaway, not a super valuable book, but a super cool book. And as the channel grows, the giveaway values will grow as well, I anticipate. So yeah, stick around and make sure that you are subscribed. Now, let's say that you decide after years and years and years to get back into comic book collecting. Or let's say that you've never been interested in comic books before, but because of all of the hype of all the superhero movies that have been coming out for the last 15 or 20 years, and just everything else in pop culture. Maybe you're a big Disney fan and you know Disney owns Marvel, you know, whatever it may be. You decide, hey, I want to try out comic books for the first time. I think that the way that you should approach collecting comic books is similar, whether or not you've been in the hobby for a long time or you're just getting started. But let's touch on the people that are just getting started, because for you, you're going to be maybe a little bit unsure of what you want to do. I would suggest probably starting with new current comic books if you're not super familiar with any of the comic books that have been written in the past, and more specifically, the stories that have been written in the past. Figure out what comic books or what characters might interest you and go to a local comic book store, or if you don't have one, like me, I don't have a local comic book store anywhere near me, you might have to go online and order a few titles. Maybe it's Batman, maybe it's Amazing Spider-Man, maybe it's the X-Men, whatever that might be. Look up and see what they have available. And yeah, order a couple, get them for a few months, read the stories, and see what you think of them before you decide to jump in the deep end of back issue comic book collecting. Because A, it can be very expensive, and it can be somewhat confusing because there are so many comic books that have been written over the last roughly 100 years to figure out what you might want to get in your collection. So that's where I would start. If you don't have a local comic book store, I can give you a recommendation, and this is not a sponsored recommendation. Of course, I have no channel, basically. There's no reason anyone would sponsor me, but I do use AtomicEmpire.com for my current comic book collecting and current comic book subscriptions. I can recommend them. They've been pretty good for me so far. So yeah, new comic book collectors, I would suggest figuring out a few current titles that are being printed that you might want to collect and read, and subscribe to them for a few months and see what you think. Now, if you are like me and you've collected comic books over the years on and off, it's probably going to be a little bit different. You have to decide, what kind of comic book collector do you want to be? Do you want to be the person that just collects and reads new comic books? Do you want to be a comic book reader? Or do you want to be a comic book collector, person that dives into the back issues bins at comic book shows, conventions, and stores, looking for hidden treasure from, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, even 60 years ago? For me, I decided more than reading, which I am going to do. I do have a few subscriptions and I do read some new comic books, but more than reading, I want to be a collector. I want to recollect my youth. I want to get those comic books from the bronze, copper, and early modern age that I used to have when I was a kid back in 1988, 89, 1990, and beyond. So yeah, that was focus number one. What do I want? I want to collect back issues primarily. Secondarily, well, what do I want to collect? Because I don't have just unlimited disposable funds or income to spend on comic books. I have to be somewhat surgical about what I get because there's only so much money available, and a lot of older comics are really, really, really expensive. Well, I have, obviously, if you can tell by the shirt, a favorite character. It is Spider-Man. And I have a favorite villain. It's Venom. Of course it is, because I was collecting comic books in 1989, 1990 when Todd McFarlane was doing the artwork for Amazing Spider-Man and then his individual Spider-Man series. So yeah, I love those characters. Since I love those characters and I love Todd McFarlane, it was pretty easy to decide what comic book I should get first. Not the absolute first comic that I added to my collection, but certainly the most expensive one that I added. And very early on, I decided to go for Amazing Spider-Man number 300, the first full appearance of Venom, the black costume Amazing Spider-Man, which was always my favorite, artwork by Todd McFarlane, my favorite artist. It all just clicked. This made the most sense as like, what key comic book issue should I focus on? Now, truth be told, this wasn't the absolute very first comic book that I bought because I was a little bit nervous to spend as much as I did on this. And yeah, well, I'll tell you, I spent $500 on this in completely ungraded raw form like this. It's probably condition-wise between very fine and near mint, maybe near mint minus, maybe very fine plus, somewhere in that range. $500 though, a lot of money for me personally. I'm not made of money. So yeah, it took me a few minutes to like warm up to the idea of spending that kind of money on a comic book. So I bought a few other things first. I've bought a few other Todd McFarlane comic books, like the Amazing Spider-Man 328 here behind me, the Amazing Spider-Man series that he did, which ran for, about 14 issues with his artwork. It ran for many, many issues after that, but Todd drawing it. It was about 14 or 15 issues, if I remember correctly. I collected those types of things, more affordable comics at the very, very beginning over the last 2 months or so. But I quickly decided or realized that, yeah, I'm into comic books again. I love comic books. I always have. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to jump in the deep end, and I'm going to get something that I really, really want, even if it is a little bit out of my comfort zone for spending on a comic book. Now, let's say you decide, I'm not going to spend $500 on a comic book, or more than that even, which I might spend more than that on a new comic book soon. Stay tuned if you want to see the next big comic book I probably am going to buy. I'll tell you about it in a future video here in the next few weeks. If I do pull the trigger, I'm probably going to, spoiler alert. But what if you don't want to spend big money on a comic book? Well, you have options. This here is Amazing Spider-Man number 300, the facsimile edition. It's a reprint. It's basically exactly like the other one in terms of, the cover, the artwork, the story, everything. It's just brand new. It's been reprinted, and it's relatively affordable. And I think this one cost me around $10 to $15, which is kind of a lot more than I would have expected, if I'm being honest, for a modern reprint. I mean, cover price on this is $6.99, so I probably paid close to double cover price to get this off of eBay. Maybe if I had a local comic book store, it would have been easier to find one locally for, a more affordable price. But regardless, $15 versus $500 is a big difference. I think a lot of us would be glad to pay $15 to be able to just thumb through this comic book, read it, and enjoy it without spending the big bucks. So yeah, this is an awesome alternative to buying those older, more expensive comic books if you, A, don't want to spend the money, or B, like me, I bought both because I don't want to be finger banging that old comic book all the time and putting wear and tear on it and decreasing the value of it. So I can be reading this one, thumbing through this one, looking at it, admiring the artwork, and every once in a while I can pull out the original one and kind of enjoy that one too, but I won't have to do it super often because I have this much more affordable alternative. So yeah, I highly recommend, if there's older, expensive comic books, search for facsimiles and reprints of those books. They're going to be much more affordable, and they can give you the majority of the enjoyment that you would get from the original. I'm not going to lie, it doesn't give you all of the enjoyment that you get from the original. There is something about having the actual thing that's really cool. But yeah, excellent alternative. I highly recommend it. Plus, they kind of look better. I mean, the pages aren't all faded. It's on nicer, bright white, glossier paper. It's not on old newsprint paper. And overall, it just looks better anyway. So makes for a more enjoyable reading experience if you want to read these old books. I guess the next thing to think about is like, where am I going to get my comic books? And I'm still struggling with that right now as we speak. Mostly I'm using eBay just because that's what I used to use back in the day when I didn't have local comic book stores in the like mid 2000s to the era where I decided to sell my comics around 2013 or 2015 or whatever that was. So again, I'm mostly on eBay. There are other alternatives though, but they're sketchy. Like, here's what I mean. The very first time I was going to buy Amazing Spider-Man number 300, which I have on the table back here, thankfully. But when I was going to buy that originally, I was on Facebook and I was in Facebook Marketplace looking for books. And there's Facebook groups with tens of thousands of members that are dedicated entirely to buying and selling comic books. And I found somebody who was either in Marketplace or in a group, I don't remember which. They had an Amazing Spider-Man 300 for sale. I think they were asking $300 for it, as a matter of fact, and they claimed the condition was, very fine range. I was like, great, seems good, a little cheap, but like not necessarily too good to be true cheap. I didn't think the person was trying to rip me off, but spoiler alert, they were trying to rip me off. I sent them PayPal payment, goods and services, thankfully, and said, here's my address, send me the book, please. 2 or 3 days go by. Hey, I send them a message. Hey, you got that book in the mail yet? Could I have a tracking number? Another day or two goes by. Hey, what's up? Did you send the book yet? Oh, and then he replies, yeah, sorry, I did send it. Or maybe he said, I'm sending it today. And he gave me a tracking number. And when you went and looked at the tracking number, it said he created the label, but never had the post office received the book or the package or whatever. Another 2 or 3 days go by. Hey, where's the book? Another 2 or 3 days go by. Hello, are you there? And then I realized, like, okay, I'm never getting this comic book. So I put in a, fraud claim or whatever you want to call it with PayPal. PayPal refunded my money. No harm, no foul to me. I mean, if he was using a stolen PayPal account or something, unfortunately, somebody might have got screwed on that. But luckily I didn't, which I'm happy about. Why I told you that whole story is because there are other places you can buy comic books, but again, some of them can be sketchy. Craigslist, it's like, looking for local comic book collections and deals. Yeah, Craigslist has them sometimes, depending on where you're at. Now you got to go meet somebody in person. They know you have a pocket full of cash. I mean, there's things that you have to do to protect yourself, both online and in person. And I don't have a lot of recommendations for that, other than I have had mostly really good luck on eBay. Prices are a little bit higher in my experience, or in my opinion, I guess I should say. And I've gotten, let's just say, I don't know how many, 30 orders I've done maybe in the last 2 months on eBay. And probably somewhere between 5 and 10 of them have came damaged because people are idiots when it comes to shipping and, more importantly, packing comic books. They think you can just throw a comic book in a little cardboard mailer, let it rattle around inside that little cardboard mailer, and that's going to protect the comic book. Spoiler alert, that does not protect the comic book. You can't just put the comic book in a Gemini mailer and let it rattle around in there. It will get dinged up. The corners will get bent. That's the only real issue I've run into, is people packing and shipping comic books really poorly and them coming to me damaged. But every single time I've either gotten a replacement or a refund. Sometimes I had to send the comic books back to the people, which of course I should have to. That's their property if they want it back. It's not like they're going to be able to sell a lot of them. Like, they were, $2 and $3 and $5 comic books, and they're all dinged up. Why do you want to go through the hassle of sending them back? But if they want them back, I send them back. A lot of times they said, sorry, my bad, just keep the book. Which, I mean, it's a junk book to me now, but I guess whatever. It's nice that they said keep the book and refunded me. Never had an issue with getting my money back, though. It's just a hassle. It's like, here's an example. I was getting the Punisher miniseries, the original 5-issue miniseries of Punisher. And I got issue 1, 3, 4, and 5. And every time I found a number 2 and I got it shipped to me, it came damaged. This happened 3 times before I finally got a keeper number 2. And it was just because of people packing them poorly, like sandwiching the comic book between 2 layers of thin cardboard and putting it in a manila envelope and throwing that in the mail is not how you protect a comic book in transit through the United States postal system anyway. They will fling that mailer at walls, at the floor, God knows where, but they always come damaged. So eBay is really my only recommendation outside of going in person to local comic book stores if you got them. And I don't have any. I have, in the next town over, 1 or 2. So I went to one not too long ago and bought a comic book, which I'll show on the channel. It's really an awesome comic book. It was not horribly expensive. It was $200. It's a first appearance of a villain in a Spider-Man comic book. I'm not going to spill the beans yet, but stick around and I'll show that comic book in a future video. But that's the first time I'd been in a comic book store in, 15 years probably, just because there aren't any nearby here. That one was just opened in the last month, actually, and they're only open on the weekends. The guy is basically just selling his collection. It's a nice little store, don't get me wrong, but he's just basically selling his personal collection. He's not doing new issues at all, subscriptions or anything like that. He's only opened on Saturday and Sunday, if I didn't mention that. And his prices are sky high. But this one comic that he had that I did buy, the price was okay. And I was like, well, I'm at a comic book store. I want to buy something. So I bought it. But anyway, if you can, always just go in person to a comic book store or a comic book convention. Look at the books, hold the books, sniff the books if that's what you want to do. And that's the best way to buy them if you can. But for me, I can't. So I do the majority of my comic book shopping on eBay. There's a couple of comic book retailers that I would trust. My Comic Shop is one of them. Reese's Comics. I bought a couple of books from his website directly. They're very good. There's probably other ones, but I just can't think of off the top of my head. But that's another one. If you know of legitimate, trusted dealers who have their own private websites, of course, you can buy from them. But be careful with the sketchy sites like, Facebook Marketplace and Facebook groups. Be careful with Craigslist. And then there's this thing, Whatnot. It's an app where people are selling on video. It's like the QVC Home Shopping Network. And I think there's more than just comic books on there, but all I've seen on it is the comic books. I've never bought anything through the Whatnot app. So I can't really say, but I'm guessing it's going to be a lot like buying from somebody through these comic book groups on Facebook. You're not going to have much in the way of protections because it's just them selling to you. I assume you'll pay with PayPal, so you'll have PayPal protections, but you're not going to get a good look at the comic books. I mean, I've watched some of the sales and they just hold the book up and be like, here's a book for sale for $500. Do you want it? You can't see the condition or anything. You're just taking their word for it. Of course, they could just not ship you the book after you pay them. But again, if you pay with PayPal, you should have some protections there. So yeah, I mean, that's another option, but it seems a little dangerous. Some other things to think about if you're going to jump back into comic collecting. And that is, comic book storage first and foremost. How many comics do you think you're going to buy? And be realistic with yourself because you want to plan ahead, in my opinion. Are you going to be buying, maybe a dozen really cool key books that are meaningful to you, or maybe 2 dozen and that's it? Like, I'm just going to get these specific, very important key books? Or do you think you're going to get, potentially hundreds and hundreds of books or thousands? Some people even have. I mean, my original comic book collections were in the thousands of comic books. I think at one point I had, and this isn't a huge collection, but like 12 or 15 long boxes full of comics. Took up so much space. That's one of the main reasons why I decided to sell my collection back 10 or 15 years ago, I guess it was. That collection was awesome. I was into collecting full runs back then. So I had a full run of Amazing Spider-Man from issue 100 to 700, plus some earlier ones, but not many. Full run of X-Men from 94 to issue, I don't know what the 400 and something, I think it was 300 and something. The entire run of Wolverine from issue 1 to I think it was 189. A huge run of Incredible Hulks, of course, all the Todd McFarlane Incredible Hulks, and then a big, huge run of Batman as well from issue 200 through, 500 or something. I loved having keys, but I liked having full, complete runs more. Now I'm going to try to focus more on important books, significant books. Maybe they're key issues. Maybe they're just important to me because I had some sort of, relationship with that book as a kid. Let's see, a good example might be, well, this Amazing Spider-Man number 328. I have another copy of that, obviously. I'm not giving away my only copy. That's not a quote-unquote key book. Like, it's Todd McFarlane cover, and it's, good Amazing Spider-Man, but no first appearances of anybody or anything. It's probably a $20 comic book in this condition, and I like it. So to me, it's a key. I couldn't sell it to you as a key because it might be meaningless to you or most people, but to me, it's a key. So when I say I want to stick to key books, I do mean, of course, the important, culturally important comic books, like the first appearance of Venom, Amazing Spider-Man 300, but also just personally important comic books. Another one is Incredible Hulk number 324 I just got. It's the first issue where the Hulk turns back to gray. It's kind of pseudo key, I guess. It's not like a $5 book. It's not going to be in dollar bins. It's maybe a $25 comic book, depending on condition, maybe a little more, but not like a great big expensive key book. But to me, it's key because I loved that book when I was a kid. I had it in my collection, along with bunch of other Hulks, but something about that one in particular I always really liked. And there's a bunch of others. It's not just that one. But I guess I'm just trying to make my point that what's key to me might not be key to you. What's key to you might not be key to me, but there's obviously key books that are keys to everyone, like Incredible Hulk 181, First Appearance Wolverine. That's a key to everybody. It's expensive, all right? So that's what I'm focusing on, those types of keys. Important books to everyone, important books to me, but specifically important books and not just tons of books. I don't want to have 15 long boxes. But that was like quite the tangent to say, think about what you're going to collect ahead of time and plan for it. Get quality bags and boards. I recommend, and again, this isn't sponsored, it's just what I use and what I like. I recommend E. Gerber's Mylite 2s, which is a 2 millimeter or mil, they call it mil, I assume it's millimeter. I don't know, 2 mil. 2 mil thick bag with a half back board instead of a double thick full back board. That's what I use. It's super high quality. The comic books look beautiful in the Mylites because it's so crystal clear. It protects your comics. They're great. They're a little pricey. I mean, 200 of them with shipping and everything probably costs around $80. But I think it's worth it to protect your investment and protect your collection. So think about the supplies you're going to need. You're going to need bags and boards. Get good ones. You're going to need boxes. I wanted this time to not do long boxes. I wanted to stick to short boxes. And I wanted the short boxes that had the little short box houses. So the box goes in this cardboard house, and it makes it so that you can stack them up without them crushing each other. So I spent a little bit of extra money getting that type of short box set up. And I have 6 of them. Only 3 of them are kind of filled up right now. I probably only have about 400 books in my collection at this point, but I have room to expand another, probably 250 to 300 books before those 6 boxes are totally filled. And, I don't think I'll probably get even all 6 of them filled up anytime soon because, again, I'm not going after as many books as I can get my hands on, going after as many books that mean something to me. And I just don't know if there's, 1,000 comic books I really need to own. But there could be. I mean, there are some story arcs and runs that I really like that I do want to collect. For example, I have Marvel Comics Presents 72 to 84, which is the Weapon X storyline. Kind of, pseudo key books, but not incredibly expensive. I think I got the whole run for about $120. So 14 comic books for $120. I mean, that's less than $10 a book. And that's not bad, I guess. But anyway, point being that I'm not just going to get onesie twosies, but I don't want to get everything in an entire run. I don't want every Amazing Spider-Man again. But there's runs within Amazing Spider-Man that I do want to have. I'm going to continue to finish working on the Todd McFarlane run, issues 298 to 328 of Amazing Spider-Man. So yeah. Point being, will I ever have 1,000 comics in my collection? I guess it's possible, but I don't think I'm going to wind up with 15 long boxes again. That seems like that's out of the question for me personally. All right, well, that's going to wrap this one up for today. Hopefully I gave you some food for thought, and make sure you're subscribed for that giveaway and for all the future giveaways that I plan on doing. I'd like to grow this channel up to, thousands and tens of thousands of subscribers at some point. The best way to do it is with your help, of course. So click subscribe. Be here for the giveaways. Click the bell notification icon so that you get notified when I make those giveaway videos. And yeah, just keep watching and keep collecting. Thanks a lot, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.